Also, would love to hear how you get along, especially with Czechs, especially with Czech men.
Okay, this feels a bit personal now.
There are also like weird traditions, like Zabiečka style, and I think like some horrific stories about that. One important thing is if you are in the relationship when there are like more people in the relationship, in the marriage, so you're like it's not a polyamorous. Polygamy, yeah. So ministry does not approve of that, nor do they accept such applications. So you only can bring one spouse.
At a time.
No, what?
Yeah, so you can only bring one, but I don't think there is a problem if that one leaves. You can bring another.
No, I think there's a problem.
I think you cannot bring two at the same time.
No, I think it's a problem. I think it's quite like if you are married to someone else and then you come and they have a record that you're married to someone else and then you bring. I don't think polygamy is accepted at all. I usually say as well, like, prepare your neighbors as well. Tell your neighbors that the foreign police might come and ask around about you, and it's okay to say that they know you. Like, it's okay. I'm also very curious to know your experience, who are listening and watching this podcast, about your story, about your life story, about how you decided to move here and how you found out that you can move here, and if you went through this process, and if you have any funny stories or any horror stories and something, I would really love to hear about that. So Jan, do you remember how we applied for our partnership visa?
Yeah, I do. I specifically remember the interview we went through.
We only had interviewed the second time we did that.
For the permanent.
Remember that? And somehow our business still stands. So let's cover more about that today.
All right.
Welcome back to the Borderline Czech, when the only thing more complicated than Czech immigration is love. Today, we will be talking about marriage and breakups and partnership visas and how to get your spouse to the Czech Republic and how the international relationship work and how hard it is to be without your partner here and what all you have to submit to prove your love to the Ministry of Interior. So today's episode is about love, relationship, and Czech bureaucracy. We've seen it all, from fairy tales endings to dramatic denials. Let's get into it today.
Looking forward.
Welcome to Borderline Czech, the podcast that spills the real tea on immigration, expat life, and everything they don't put into the official brochures. I'm Daria, I'm an immigration expert, I'm a psychologist, I'm a co-founder of MoveToPrague, and your expert and your guide through the Czechia's gloriously confusing bureaucratic system. And alongside me today is Jan, who is my co-founder at MoveToPrague, proud Czech person, and eternal devil advocate. For the purposes of this podcast, it's also very important to know, because we are not bullshitting in this podcast, that Jan is also my ex. And we went through everything about love and the partnership visa applications ourselves. So there's a lot of what to look forward to in this podcast today. We don't always agree on stuff, but that's kind of our thing, and we decided to make a podcast out of it. So if you're planning to move here or already live here or just love hearing foreigners and Czech people fired about bureaucracy and life in the Czech Republic, you're in the right place. And today is going to be a very, very juicy topic.
If you see or hear me cry, that's real.
Okay, well, let's not start with crying. Okay. Let's start on a positive note. So let's talk numbers. Jan, do you have any numbers prepared?
I do.
Numbers usually also make you cry. So let's talk about some numbers.
But numbers make me cry of enjoyment. Yeah, I love my tables and numbers and everything.
Jan is an Excel table guy, and every time we meet for some meetings for the company, he always said, so I prepared this new Excel table. And it's always...
And Daria is always, yeah, I have this creative idea in my head. And I'm like, here are the numbers.
Yeah, that's why it works, guys. So
yeah.
But also it may seem, that I'm this creative chaos. And Jan is the logical person in our business, which is not always correct.
True.
which is not always correct. Yeah, but I'm an ideas person, and Jan loves to put ideas to Excel tables. So tell me about some juicy numbers that you prepared for us.
Juicy numbers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I have two main numbers related to today's topic, and that's the number of marriages happening in the Czech Republic, like among foreigners. And the latest number was 7,254 marriages. And maybe divorces might be interesting as well. And that's 1,893. I don't have the statistics of like how many of those 7,000 were divorced the same year, but let's maybe
the answer is synthesis. Sorry, it's my every time I don't know some statistic, I just say the number is synthesis.
Yep. So that's the one.
Yes, but Czech bureaucratic system doesn't entirely scream romance, though.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. No.
Yeah, you probably got idea if you were listening to the previous podcast or you were watching the previous video. We've talked about some of the immigration. If you haven't watched that, go back there for sure, because we've shared plenty of crazy stories about the Czech immigration. So we'll talk a bit more specific about the immigration related to love and marriages and relationships in general today.
Yeah, why we touch this topic at all today is because the partnership visas, the so-called partnership visa, is one of the main services we have been doing throughout the years at MoveToPrague. And I feel like we were maybe the first ones to discover this loophole that you don't have to be married to apply for a visa here. So I feel like we were maybe we were the first ones.
I think so.
That,
yeah, because it was 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
When we first applied, and no one knew about it back then.
I don't think so. Yeah, and it was like so new. So we introduced it to our clients, and now it's one of the most popular things we do. And we hear so many love stories throughout the years. And we will cover what exactly you have to submit, and how it looks. And we heard so many amazing stories. But also when you touch the topic of divorce, sometimes I see people, we've been working for more than 13 years, and so many couples come in and have this like beautiful life stories and pictures and how they're gonna be like together forever. And then in 1 year time, they come in and they say that they broke up and what are their visa options right now. And that makes me kind of a cynic right now. I feel like, every time, like now, all these like love letters and all these stories, they don't really tingle my bell anymore. But all these new, colleagues and employees we get, and they get and they start working on those, they always are so touched by these stories. And I'm like, oh, you cutie patootie, like, just wait, like, baby, like, just wait. But we support everyone, and we never say that, or at least I try not to roll my eyes loudly at those rooms, and I try not to be cynical. I really try to. So in case I become very cynical on this podcast, I apologize, and I will try to catch myself in this. But if you are in a relationship, your relationship is blooming, and you consider moving here with your partner, we totally support you, and we can definitely give you some insights on that.
Yeah, you try to be cynical. You are cynical about this, as you said. You said it yourself. But I always try to be more like...
My eyes rolled so much right now.
I always try to be the realistic part of it, because usually... okay, I see. You cannot see it, guys, on the podcast, but that was a bad stare from Daria. Usually, if you start working with us as MoveToPrague, then you first go through me, because I'm responsible for sales. So I have a colleague who works there with me as well for sales, but usually speak with me first. So first of all, we generally don't accept cases where we see a very low potential approval rate. Because sometimes people, it's like 10 years ago, it was very simple, because we were the first ones, and like not too many people knew about it. So now, what I'm trying to say,
Jan is visibly nervous. Does love make you nervous, Jan?
The topic, yes, makes me a bit nervous, but hopefully that will get better. that I don't know where I was going with that. Like what I was saying.
You were saying that I'm cynical. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, and that I'm the realistic one. That we don't accept cases where we don't see. Because the thing is that now more and more people try to fake it. We'll probably get there later in the podcast today, but like now people try to apply with their roommates. They're not really in a relationship, but they have photos together because they live together, and they try to apply it this way. And that decreases the chances. And like if there are many applications where people are not real couples, that influences the overall immigration process, because then the ministry changes the rules, makes it more complicated to get those. And so we choose who to work with. So there are some criteria we look at or I ask you about, like, how long have you been together? How can you prove that? And stuff like that, to evaluate if you can like really apply. And I usually also always mention that your status in the Czech Republic, or let's say that the person who's moving here as a third country national, related to an EU citizen, that your immigration status will be based on your relationship. You'll be based on the other person here. And so I usually don't like say anything specific, like why I'm saying that, but I let people kind of I let the sentence to sink and see if that's the correct way, because it might seem like very weird for me to say, but we've seen also cases where like you will have more stories about that, I guess, but where those people like I don't know how to say that, like the main applicant.
Just say it, man. Just split oh my God.
Okay, so there is the EU citizen, and there is the non-EU citizen, and the non-EU citizen is dependent on the EU citizen. And we've seen cases where the EU citizen was really abusing it. It was kind of like abusing the power over the non-EU citizen. So like, yeah, if you don't stay with me, or if you don't do this or that, I will cancel your visa and stuff like that. So that's...
We did see cases like this.
Yeah,
yes,
so that's what I'm trying to prevent already in the beginning when I speak with people, to see and to show them everything that's related to that. Like, such a simple thing to say, such a simple idea, but I was talking about it for 5 minutes. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so 5 minutes of life wasted right now. Yeah, basically, yeah, fortunately, we did see a lot of cases that you become dependent and you don't know that you have other options. Even if you are on the partnership visa, even if you're on a partnership visa and you feel threatened, this message is for you. So if you are in an abusive relationship and you are dependent on a partner, there's a group on Facebook. It's called Expat Women in Prague. And they do share stories like this a lot, that they are here on dependent visa or partnership visa and their partner is abusive, is abusing it. And they're threatening that they're going to report it and stuff. If that's the case and you're in an abusive relationship, and even if they go and report it, it doesn't mean you're going to get deported. And in fact, the Ministry of Interior will take your side in the story if you gave enough evidence. We did have practices like this at MoveToPrague. I solved that quite well. I can't say quite often, but I would say from time to time. We have more happy stories. So in case it's true, and in case they do threaten you directly that they will go and deport you, report you, whatever, take your residency away, that is not true. And you have a lot of rights and a lot of options how to prevent that and how to stay in the country legally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would also like to mention that it does not always need to be the woman who's abused. It can also be the man. So if you're a man and you're being abused, speak up as well. That
seemed a little personal. Jan looked dead in my eyes when saying that. Do you have something to say?
Nothing personal there, no.
We are now in a very small room together, so...
Yeah, I'm very much afraid.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you can write to HR about that. Well, let's move on. So, okay. I know that you have some statistics about the gender ratio in the Czech Republic. Is it correct?
It is, yeah. Now, guys, can you estimate what's the ratio between like men and women? Do you think that there is like expat people, I mean, foreigners living here? So you have 3 seconds to think if there are more women or more men and how big of a difference it is. Because the numbers are actually pretty close to each other. So there are 538,000 men, like foreigners, in the Czech Republic, and 524,000 women. So the difference is 14,000 out of a million. So it's pretty like balanced, I would say.
I have nothing okay.
Nothing to add. Okay.
I have nothing
No
to add.
opinion about
No,
it.
I have no opinion about that.
All right.
That was a very bland statistic.
Yeah. I'm usually the boring guy.
Do you have any other interesting statistics you would like to cover in this episode?
I don't think so. I don't think statistics are that interesting.
I know,
I
right?
think the stories will be sharing and how it works in real life and all that will be more interesting.
Yeah. So for the purpose of the podcast, we're going to be talking about a few things that we will need to distinguish from each other. So first, when we say partnership visa, when we say partnership visa, it's an unofficial name for a temporary residency permit for family members of unmarried EU citizens. So if you are in the partnership in a common household with an EU citizen and you're not married, we are commonly calling it partnership visa. This name already, I feel like even like we introduced it. Like I'm pretty sure that we were the ones introducing this specific term into the internet space. Now everybody's using it. I'm not taking any credits, but it was us. It was us.
Yep.
So we will call it collectively. We will call it partnership visa.
Yep.
Second is a temporary residency permit for a close family member of EU citizen in case you are a married couple, or in case you have a child who's a EU citizen, or you are a child of a EU citizen. Also, you can get it. And
it's always a combination when one of you is an EU citizen and the other is a non-EU citizen, but you are both living or moving to the Czech Republic. So it can be different variations. It doesn't have to be necessarily a Czech citizen and an American girlfriend or like Indian wife or whoever, but it can also be like a French citizen who's living in the Czech Republic and they want to bring their Filipino partner, for example.
Great. Yeah. A lot of people also ask us if they can bring their sister or their brother. For example, they are like, again, French citizen and they live here and their sibling is not. Maybe they live in a different country, they have like different parents, whatever. That is not possible unless there is a very specific circumstance that we will need to discover. And anyway, that's not a topic for this podcast. This topic of this podcast is love. And third, what we would like to distinguish is when you have two third country nationals and they want to reunite in the Czech Republic. And this is a long-term visa or long-term residency for the family purpose. So there are two different names that we would need to distinguish for the purposes of this podcast, immigration-wise.
Yeah. And maybe one more thing to mention here is that if you're both non-EU citizens, then you kind of need to be married to be able to bring your spouse. There is no equivalent to a partnership visa, let's say, for two non-EU citizens.
You can potentially apply for the visa purpose, which is called other, but it's extremely rare and it almost never happens. So yeah, if you're both third country nationals, you have to get married to reunite. But if one of you is EU citizen, you don't have to be married and you can apply for partnership visa, which is actually that we would like to start this with. Because this is such an interesting process. Of course, there's some legal requirements for that. But then there is this thing when the Ministry of Interior wants you to prove that you're worth enough. And they want you to prove that you basically are a family, but you're just not officially married.
Yep.
So how do we call it in MoveToPrague? Proof of love. Proof of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are not vibing with Jan today, which is so funny to see. So we'll be starting with this one. Yeah, and we heard so many horror stories, or it's not even, it's like myth it's like an urban myth that the foreign police will come to your apartment and see who washes the dishes and if you have like your personal things there and where are your socks and on what side of a bed you're sleeping it and everything will try to catch you in the lie, which hasn't been the case since the sliced bread. Like I never in my life, and we've been doing it for 13 years. We're doing it literally every week. I never heard of anyone like a foreign police just like rushing and just like seeing where your personal things are and where are your underpants and stuff.
No.
It's actually much more prosaic than this. It's much more boring than that. But it also depends how many things you are preparing in advance.
So where do we want to start? With the paperwork?
Maybe the paperwork. Yeah, let's start there, yes.
Or maybe the qualification requirements first. Like,
let's do the qualification requirements.
That's related to the paperwork. I mean, like how to, because there are some, I don't think we need to go into like the financial details maybe that much, but there are some, of course, requirements like lease agreements and proof of your income, all that. But the most important that decides about the success of the application is the proofs of love.
Yes.
And there is no like official legal guideline for that. There is no like in some countries. I think that's also it's also one of the specifics of the Czech Republic actually, because I don't think too many countries allow this, that you don't have to be married to get some type of residence permit.
Well, I know, for example, in Italy, because my close friend lives in Italy, and she had something similar to that, but she couldn't apply without any papers. They had to go to like a town hall and request a partnership registration. So the town hall had to approve that they are like partners. It's not like registered partnership, but it's like common household. I think it's called a common household agreement. And they had to get it official. And only after that, they had to apply. So it's not quite the marriage, but it's still their first official permit they had to get. While in Czech Republic, you don't have to get that permit. You just have to prove your relationship to the Ministry of Interior.
Yeah, so there is no hard line, like you would need to be together for a year specifically or anything like that. But you basically need to prove that you've been in a serious long-term relationship similar to a marriage. So we've come up with some, let's say, a list of documents we recommend having and which works the best. We've discovered after all these years we've been doing this. And one of the most important and the basic requirements is the story of the relationship. So that's where we find out like about all the details and everything about the love story.
Yeah, so this love story and all the other proof that we're going to talk about today is considered at 2 steps. First step is when you go to the ministry and apply, because you need to get some kind of a bridge visa while you wait in the process. And your first point of contact is the person behind the counter at the Ministry of Interior who will be reading through your love story. So that's when you have to prepare it. And then all documents in your file are sent to a third party national. Oh my God. The third party who will decide on your application. So basically you need to really work on it, and you have to put as much details as possible, where you met and how you met and whether you know each other parents and what your plans for the future and all of that.
Yeah. And there are different approaches to that. Even me and Daria have different approaches, like what we recommend. Both work. No. Daria disagrees.
Daria disagrees most of the time.
Yeah. So there is no specific way of writing it, but imagine that you are submitting, you're trying to explain your relationship to like 7 years old. So it must be really laid out. You need it. If some people don't really like writing stories, we've heard even people saying like why the fuck should I explain my relationship to someone? And there are also like people who maybe don't take too many photos together, but they still need to prove it. So there are different approaches to that, from like a simple statement, like we confirm we've been together for 3 years, which is not really strong for the ministry because it's just a sentence you wrote. It doesn't mean that it's the truth. So we generally prefer a bit more detailed, where you explain like when exactly you met and attach some photos to that. and like how your relationship has been developing, like you travel together, and like if you share a household, you have the same bank account. You explain basically everything, and you need to lay it out really simply, and you need to clearly explain what you want the ministry to take out of it, because you cannot leave anything to the ministry's imagination. Because if you leave it, it can go either way. Either they can understand it the way you meant it, or they can understand it in a completely different way, and it can even hurt your application. So you need to be, even though it sounds simple, like just write down like how you meant and everything, but you need to be very careful about like how you write it, what words you use, and what to. Also, it's important what not to mention in the story. That actually brings me to
So what wouldn't
one case.
what wouldn't you mention? Like now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, now we had a case where I think she was Czech and her partner was American, and she went to visit him to the US, and he had like a grandma, and the grandma had a dog. And then the grandma wrote a letter supporting their relationship. So she wrote like, yeah, I know them, they look really happy together, all that. She even mentioned it was a handwritten letter. It was like 2 pages. It was really nice. And she mentioned like, my dog hates everyone, but when she came here, they immediately like fell in love. That never happens. That means that she's a really good person, blah, blah, blah. But what she also mentioned was that she visited the US like only twice, and like for 5 days or something. And that's a very specific detail. Like she was only here for 5 days, seeing my grandson. And that's probably something you don't really want to specifically write there.
Yeah, you have to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, but now I'm like, what if the Ministry of the Interior listens to the podcast?
I mean, okay, so disclaimer, like whenever, like as we mentioned before and also in our last podcast, we don't take shady cases.
Yep.
So like we always say like our first qualification always is like how long have we been together and how often do you see each other? Yeah, we know the legal requirements. There's no a legal requirement of like how many times you have to see each other, but you do have to show that you are not just dating. You just have like a boyfriend and girlfriend just seeing each other from time to time. You have to show that you are in fact a family.
Yep.
You are a family, So, or you plan to be one, because basically the requirement says that you have to be planning to live. From the moment you apply, you have to live in a common household and stuff. So, it's for them to find out how strong it is, but we can only give you advice on how to, not to mock up your application or something, but how to really show that you've been, together and stuff. So, for sure, as you mentioned, the letter, then also letters from your family and friends who can confirm all of that. Then the pictures of you together throughout the years.
Hotel bookings, flight tickets.
As well, yes. And the financial statements saying that you maybe send money to each other, or maybe you cover rent partially, or maybe you have a shared bank account.
Yep.
So all of these things a family does, but without actually being married, which I think like a super cool thing for the Czech Republic. I feel like it's such a progressive thing. Also, I would like to cover a very important thing is also the partnership visa between same-sex couples.
Yep.
They've always been so cool about it, even before it became very widespread, even when we started doing it like 10 years ago or 12 years ago. It was already, I think, there. And I always, or like our clients who come in and they're in the same sex couple, they always are more nervous about that, understandably, and always asking like, how the Czech Republic looks at it, and do you think like how many people get approved? And actually, Czech Republic and the ministry, even being sometimes the old farts themselves, they're actually super nice about it.
Yeah.
Like I never heard a single horror story about that. I feel like they have always been so respectful of that.
Yep.
Not doing into dirty laundry, not asking, not asking any like weird questions. They actually are they have always been very respectful of that and very nice about it. So if you are also listening to this podcast, you are in a same-sex marriage or same-sex partnership, and you're thinking if you should apply for it, or if it's Czech Republic is the right place for it, I can tell you 100% it is.
Yeah, that's true.
100%, yes. And it's also something we've been dealing basically every year. Oh, sorry, every week. I wanted to say every week with that.
Yeah, no, I believe also that because Daria is the way bigger expert for this topic than me because she deals with a lot of cases and hundreds of cases, I believe, and she's seen a lot.
Yeah.
But what comes in mind are couples, for example, from countries where like being gay is actually illegal or punishable by like death or like stuff like that. So we've had cases like that, and that's pretty like extreme to see that and hear like how they couldn't stay in Poland, for example, because that would just never work and the government would like never approve anything like that. Plus, they could be in danger, and in some other countries could be like life-threatening danger. And Czech Republic is not like that.
It's generally extremely safe. Generally, not only immigration wise, but also life wise. It's a very. It's always fascinated me how forward-thinking Czech Republic is in this. Also considering its communistic past.
Yeah.
Also considering like the location, and demographics and everything. Of course, Prague is also much more forward thinker than the rest of Czech Republic, but still, even like the rest, I would say it's amazing. It always amazes me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are in the relationship, also we had a lot of transgender relationships as well. Also good. Also very positive experience with all of them.
Yep.
Literally, like I always say, like you have nothing to worry about. Like really, like I really only have positive experience in that. And yes, like Jan almost never does it or never even did it. Like I do it a lot. I don't know. I love love.
Yep.
I love love. So
I love tables and numbers.
And that's why I can assure you, like I can't even remember a bad case for a very, very long time.
For example, for transgender couples can be a bit more complicated from the perspective of the paperwork because I've seen, for example, passports where there was still the old sex. So that you might need to be a bit more careful about that.
I mean, like, okay, so I was thinking about that as well, and like some particular cases I had. Yeah. What did you actually face any problem? Because I didn't.
Like, no, not like.
But what do you need to be careful about then?
No, just that. For example, this couple, they didn't have the sex changed in their passport.
You don't have to.
So that might, and they were working on that. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think because I did have specific cases like this, and you have like maybe it's gonna sound wrong and we're gonna get canceled like now, but like you had in the passport that you're male, but you definitely look like a female and you identify yourself as a female. And I had at least 5 people come to mind right now to me, never had a problem.
Yeah.
Never. Like I came there, like I was like, okay, like I always prepare people. Also, when we go to the Ministry of Interior and apply for that, I always prepare them. Like, look, like they might give you weird looks. It might be a bit like, I hope they're not going to be rude to you. I just want to prepare you for like things they're going to come. Never. Yep. Never happened. Never. Like you like, and I don't know, maybe they have some kind of like also training on that. Never had I have like, and I had specifically the issue that you're describing. Never been an issue.
No problem. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I was like, okay, like maybe you did have an experience, a concrete one. I never had.
No, I'm just cautious about that because like if you, for example, if you change your name and then your name is different in your passport and in your marriage certificate, for example, that could create potentially some problem at the Ministry of the Interior. So I meant it from this perspective, like the paperwork wise.
But different thing. But this what you mentioned that you have to have like the same name everywhere. It's not a same sex or transgender issue. It's an issue of documents that you have to have. It's actually a good point. Yeah, if you do change your name, it has to be the same everywhere in the passport and the marriage certificate, in all the documents. It has to be the same, but it's not really, like.
I didn't have any like concrete bad experience. Just wanted to mention that might be a bit more like. But if you're saying that there has never been a problem with that specifically, then that's a good news, I think.
Never. Like I really tried to think about it, and never.
No, right?
No. Even like really, we had also couples that both changed their gender. Still good. Yeah, the only problem was that they were waiting for the EU passport. Like that was the issue. They just were waiting for the EU passport to get like through. And but there was one case, and they wanted to change it legally in the passport, but because they wanted it.
Mhm.
They didn't want to apply before that. So I was saying it's not a problem, it's okay. And they said, no, like we wanna get this done. So it
Okay.
was their initiative. It wasn't even like the initiative of
Okay.
Czech system. So I really don't see any problems with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
So don't
Thank
be
you.
afraid. So if you are in the same situation, something similar, like you can actually even reach out to us and we can tell you like the experience and stuff. Even if you do encounter some problems during the process, like we're here for you, literally. So like you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah. We could maybe now touch the topic of the interview
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
happening, because you mentioned the foreign police
Mm-hmm.
initially. And yes, they usually come to check you to the apartment. They show up unexpectedly just to like really see if you live together, all that. But it's usually like 10 or 15 minutes from what I've heard, that it's not, they don't really go through your drawers or anything like that. Sometimes during COVID, they didn't even go inside of the apartment. They just looked like behind the corner and ask you what's there, if you knew that it was a kitchen or not. But other than that, they just ask a couple questions, want to see your passport, and it's all done in 10, 15 minutes. But it can get a bit more intense if the ministry invites you for an interview.
Yeah.
And that happens if they don't believe that you are a couple, because usually that happens if people don't prepare the initial application well. It can happen based on your nationality as well. That's like a lot of immigration is like, or problems or approaches of the ministry are based on your nationality. That's just a fact. For some nationalities, it's easier to get visas. For some nationalities, it's a bit more complicated.
Yeah, Czech Ministry of Interior is very cool about same-sex marriages and relationships, and they're very, very uncool about certain passports.
Yeah. Yeah, so the foreign police part is pretty like straightforward, but then the interview, if you, for example, didn't submit enough proofs of relationship, then they would invite you for an interview to explain and like to see if you really are a couple, or potentially depending on the nationality. Even if you had enough proofs of love, they can still invite you for an interview.
Yeah. Or what also comes to mind is that they will come to visit you, right? The foreign police. And if they don't find you there, they can also invite you for interview. And I usually say as well, like, prepare your neighbors as well. Like, tell your neighbors that the foreign police might come and ask around about you. And it's okay to say that they know you. Like, it's okay. Like, they're not like, and I had a couple and they've been living there forever. So they actually had a very good relationship with their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too good, because when the foreign police came to visit, they weren't home, and the foreign police started to ask around the neighbors if they know them, and all the neighbors just said that they don't know them, they have no idea who they are, and they haven't seen them in months.
They're trying to protect them.
They're trying to like do good, and they tried to like protect them, and they thought they were in trouble, and actually it worked the other way. And those neighbors had to write a letter saying, no, actually, like we know them and stuff. So yeah, it was a little bit counterproductive. It was one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, so throw a party, welcome party. Like if you're from a foreign country, maybe like bake something typical and like share it with everyone, so they remember you, and tell them that it's fine to know you.
Yeah. What about the interview? So what's important to know is that you and your partner would have separate interviews.
Yeah.
And that if you do not speak Czech well enough, you will need to secure yourself a translator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what questions they ask?
Well, first of all, we've been through that ourselves, so we can share our personal experience.
Yeah, but for us, like, it was weird because like we applied first for the temporary residency, and then after 6 years or 7 years, we applied for permanent residency on the same basis, and basically the only we've been together at that point at like 8 years, and the only reason they invited us for interviews because they found it weird that we weren't married yet. And we never got married.
Yeah.
So that was the reason they invited us for this. So we can share. Like for us, it was a little weird because they ask us questions. Like the question they usually ask is like, do you know each other parents?
Yeah, what are their names?
What are their names? And I was just sitting there like, yeah, like I met some, like on one of the weddings I was invited. I met some relatives Jan never met. And they were like, what the fuck you're doing here? I was like, I honestly have no idea. Like, I'm sorry to waste your time. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So yeah, so if you know your like each other relatives' names, what the other partner does for work, basically the whole purpose of this interview is to do two things: to see first if your answers align with each other, and second, how much you know about each other's life.
Yep.
So the first part is, for example, they will ask you questions like, "What did you do the previous weekend?" Or where do you do your shopping? Or when do you plan to do your next vacation? This is when they want to know that your answers align.
Yeah. They asked us about the Valentine's Day, I believe. Last Valentine's Day.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
This part I don't remember. Yeah, I remember they asked, and second is how much you know about each other. I remember they asked me about if I have, and I've been like, at that point when they asked, we had this interview, it was way after we started doing all this partnership visa for the clients. So we knew exactly, what questions they would ask. And they asked me if I have any tattoos or stuff or any illnesses. At that point, I was like, no, I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any illnesses. And they wanted to move on. And I asked her, like, do you want to ask me about, like, the allergies I have? Because it's one of the questions they ask, like, does your partner know your allergies, or do you know that your partner has any allergies? And then they ask your partner, does she have any allergies? So I was like, do you want to ask me about allergies? And she looked at me and she's like, would your partner know?
I didn't.
And I was like, probably not. They're like, let's skip it. I was like, okay.
But I think they asked me about that, and I don't know.
Exactly,
I have two things to say here. First, I was pretty nervous. Like, as Daria mentioned, we've been through that process with other clients for like a couple years back then, and we were a real couple for 8 years or whatever at that point. And I was still nervous. And I went there. So maybe might be to prepare you for that as well. Because it's kind of stressful, you don't know. Even though you've heard the stories before, you've read the questions, the answers, all that, you know how it works, you know why they do that. It's still kind of like an official thing. Because what they do also is that like it's a normal conversation. They ask a question, you reply, but what they do is that they kind of summarize what you said into 2 sentences, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, and they write it down. So they do kind of an extract from the talk. So you also don't know what exactly they will write there. You can, of course, read it later and like say if you want to change something or not. So, but I was still a bit nervous because it's an official act, and I don't know if they're trying to like catch me lying or something like that.
Well, were they?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But
they were so chill with me, which is so funny because like you're Czech.
Yeah.
And I'm also.
I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Other than you going back home, but.
Yeah, and I was like, they were so chill and so nice to me.
Yeah.
They literally were looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing here? I was like, I have no idea. Like, let's get it over with. Like, they were so nice.
They were nice with me as well, but I was still nervous. But maybe back to the things, like if you know things about your partner or not, I would say it also helps to be real. If they ask you for the size of your partner's shoes and you say like, I bought her shoes once and like she didn't like it, so I don't buy her shoes anymore, so I have no idea about her shoe size, might be better and might be more real if it's the truth than trying to guess the number,
Yeah, like don't overdo it. Yeah, like I have sometimes when people are invited for interviews, they want to know everything. They was like, okay, we're going to be super prepared. We're going to be adjust our questions. And like usually the woman is like a type A personality and she just like, you have to know this and this. And when is my mother born? And I was like, don't overdo it, because if you're overly prepared, it's going to look like
you overly prepared.
Exactly. Like you're
you have
fake.
something to hide.
Exactly. Like be yourselves. Like prepare for something, right? Like just adjust like these questions. For example, what did you do on the weekend, right? Or like where you keep your medicine at home, right? Like, or like something they like remember your mother, like your partner's mother name. Yeah. But don't overdo it. Like if you don't know, just say like, I have no idea. Like and it's fine. They don't expect you to know everything. Just need to see that you are a couple. They will know, like they will see it right away.
Yeah. And one important thing from one of the cases I've seen as well, agree or like synchronize about the date when you actually started dating.
Yeah.
Because I remember a case where the man and the woman were 3 months apart with when the relationship started. So I believe for her it was sooner, for him it was a bit later. So this is pretty important, like to synchronize on this.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like, so tattoos, allergies, just like basic things. Like if you really are together, you have nothing to worry about.
No.
Yeah. If you aren't together and you're listening to this podcast in order to trick the ministry, please don't do that.
Yeah, you will destroy the system for everyone else.
Well, actually, you did already. Like, I'm talking to you, all you people, because the last podcast, in the last podcast, we said, we discussed briefly, you can actually listen to our last podcast. We discussed briefly the changes of the law, that the law changes every 2 years. And one of the latest changes of the law was that they changed the definition of the family member to a close and distant family member.
Yep.
So the partnership visa is distant family member. Before that, it was just all in one.
Yep.
And it had the same benefits as if you were married. Now, it's not anymore. And you are to blame because in around 2021, I think, right? 2020. No, it was before COVID.
I think
just before COVID.
Yeah, anyway.
A lot of people, like, it got very popular, this partnership visa thing, and they started to trick ministry and they started to apply for the partnership visas with their roommates and friends and stuff. So they tried to trick the ministry and it was like widespread. So everybody got invited for interviews and it was a 1 year long investigation when everybody got like super suspicious and they investigated everything. Yep. So you are to blame. So you can blame people who try to trick the Czech system that you now have to submit significantly more evidence if you're not married. And significantly more documents as well. And they made your life hell, so you can thank them.
Yeah. And that actually goes for other cases as well, generally, the immigration. And also, I don't know if we will discuss it now or later, also fake marriages.
Fake marriages.
Because if you do something, or if the ministry, you might think that you're the only one doing it, like trying to go around the system or whatever, but you're most likely not. And if the ministry sees the total numbers, if they see, okay, so we've had 7,000 of applications for a partnership visa and we denied 2,000 out of them because they were fake, then they are obviously going to make the rules way more difficult for everyone. And you might think that one case doesn't matter, but if it's like your case and your friends and someone else, then it adds up and they actually see that in the total numbers and they adjust the law because of that. So don't do anything illegal.
Don't
please.
Do drugs.
You can do drugs, but not at the ministry.
Don't do drugs. Alrighty, yeah. And actually it leads us to another thing that I wanted to discuss about the fake marriages, the arranged marriages. We're not talking about EU now and their partners, but we're talking about the long-term visas for citizens of countries such as, for example, India or Philippines or some other countries where arranged marriages is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like a side point, yeah, I think an arranged marriage is such a great thing. Like, honestly, like I'm so tired of like
love marriages.
Of love marriages, like these expectations you build and like you have to date and stuff. It's just like, ugh! And like I wish that like you just like could, just could like find a person that would suit you the best, like based on your income and your like and your status and stuff. Like you want to be like this and that, and you find another person who just also wants to be this. The life would be so like marriage is not about love. Marriage is about trust and responsibilities and growing together as a partner and just like trying to be, like to grow together and respect each other.
Yep.
And love hates, like one way or another. So like arranged marriage is actually like I'm very pro.
Well,
a consensual arranged marriage.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. So I'm like very pro like all these like Indian matchmakers and stuff. Like I'm really digging it. So I feel like it's a great thing. But Ministry of Interior might not look at this the same way.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends and it also changes. And it's been changing recently because it's kind of a common thing that one of the spouses comes here first because they get the job, and they move to the Czech Republic. They try to like find an apartment, save some money, and then couple years later to bring their spouse and kids, and it used to be fine. But now the ministry, if it's been kind of like a long time between the first person moving here and the other trying to move here, then actually the ministry started making problems with that recently. So I might be speaking a bit confusingly today. Sorry for that. So I'll try to make it a bit more simple. So let's say you're from India, you came here now, then you've been living here for 3 years, and after 3 years you want to bring your wife, or the other way around. Used to be no problem at all because you were married, and Czech Republic kind of very much respects marriage in general. But now the ministry started making trouble for people who haven't seen each other for 3 years. Because if you live here, you don't even travel to visit your wife or husband, then the ministry does not really see it as a real family. So if you like...
I don't know how legal that is though. Like, I've been thinking about it because it started to appear like the last year or so.
Yeah, not that long ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I always want to see like how legal that is.
Mm-hmm.
I never have time for that, but maybe I will look into it because I don't think that's totally legal. In case you have like a marriage and you've been married for a while, like how legal it is to discuss for them to really decide.
Yeah, I think there is a thin line. It's kind of with the fake marriages as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, yeah, that would be a long discussion. So, like, for example, after how long you get married and it's considered like a real marriage than like arranged marriage or whatever. So,
yeah, but sometimes what we saw now over the past maybe year or two is that they would invite the spouses to the interview and they would ask questions also about the relationship, very similar to the ones we already discussed. But usually they ask how often you see each other, what that other person is doing here,
what kind of residence permit they have,
exactly where they're going to live, what you're going to do here. And a few people came to us after it was denied. It wasn't our date. It's just like they got denied and then they came to us.
Which is, sorry to interrupt, but it's actually pretty good if this happens. From the person, obviously not for the couple, but good for us, because if the ministry denies some applications, they need to give you an official letter explaining what were the reasons. So you actually can get a grasp of what the ministry is thinking and how they approaching the cases and what they don't like. So it can give us some feedback and we can adjust the procedures and the advice we give. So bad for the couples, good for us because we kind of understand the ministry is thinking more.
All right. Yeah. So what else can we discuss? Oh yeah, maybe one important thing is if you are in the relationship when there are like more people in the relationship, in the marriage, so you're like it's not a polyamorous polygamy, yeah. So ministry does not approve of that, nor do they accept such applications. So you only can bring one spouse
at a time.
No, what?
Yeah, so you can only bring one, but I don't think there is a problem if that one leaves. You can bring another.
No, I think there's a problem.
I think you cannot bring two at the same time.
No, I think it's a problem. I think it's quite like if you are married to someone else and then you come and they have a record that you're married to someone else and then you bring. I don't think polygamy is accepted at all.
I think it is. I don't know if it's now, but I believe I read that because we had not a case like that we would be working in, but someone contacting us, and I'm pretty sure it was fine that they kind of recognize that exists. That you can have more.
Are you for real?
Yeah, but you cannot bring more than one wife at a time. So I would need to refresh that because that's not very common. So I don't remember, but I think it was like that. That you could potentially bring all the wives, but not at the same time. They would have to like take turns of living in the Czech Republic. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I want to disagree with you on that. So if you can find out for the next time, or dear listeners or viewers, if you have an experience with that, or if you have knowledge, please let us know. Because like that seems very I know.
It was last time a couple years ago, so might have changed, but pretty sure it was like this. But if you can find out, guys,
Pretty
let
sure.
us
Wow.
know.
Pretty sure. That's a very solid statement. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah.
But let's see. Let's
agree to disagree.
Okay. Alrighty. So, what else? If we had any rejections, actually, like we as a company, we had like very little rejections over the last 30 years. I would say it's less than 5% of rejections.
For the partnership visas, even less.
Yeah. No, I mean in general. Okay, and for the partnership visa, I literally can think of 2.
Yeah.
I can think of 2 cases.
Remember one. Yeah.
Okay, so which one do you remember?
Remember the online couple.
Do you want to tell more?
Yeah, it was like years ago. It was like when it was still a bit wild and not that serious, let's say. So we had a couple where they were both very young and they met online playing some game. I don't remember the game. I'm not a gamer, as you could guess, probably.
How could they guess? How could they possibly guess? Maybe you're playing the Candy Crush right now.
Probably. That's the only one I would play. They met online and they spent it. There is a log like how much time you spent playing, and they spent playing like 2,000 or 3,000 hours together. So they talk a lot the whole time. They eventually moved together and all that. But then the ministry, the girl was very young. I don't think she was even 18 when they applied. And when they met, I don't remember. It was years ago, but she was very young. She was still in a high school, and the ministry denied the application because they were saying that this is not like, they believe they're in a relationship, but it's not a serious long-term relationship similar to a marriage. It's like a school love, basically. So they denied it based on that. That's the case I remember.
Yeah, well, the only other case I remember was the marriage one. The German citizen, or he was Czech citizen, and I think she was Zambian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was like we started to work on it, and only after that we found out that it was a fake marriage. We didn't know that in the beginning.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But I actually don't know how it worked out later.
We stopped working with them because as we mentioned, we don't do anything shady, so we worked together until we found out, and then we stopped. So I actually don't know how that played out.
I'm also very curious to know your experience, who are listening and watching this podcast, about your story, about your life story, about how you decided to move here and how you found out that you can move here, and if you went through this process, and if you have any funny stories or any horror stories and something. I would really love to hear about that. Also, would love to hear how you get along, especially with Czechs, especially with Czech men.
Okay, this feels a bit personal now.
That's what you can just but because I'm sure there are also like weird traditions, like Zabiečka style, and I think like some horrific stories about that. And just wanna hear them. It must be very, very interesting.
The thing is that the longer we do this, I really see that there are more and more. I see that there can be pretty big differences in the like cultural background and like the behavior and like even the how to say that, like approach to different things like marriage. We talked about the arranged marriages and all that, different topics and different like values, let's say. And we've seen couples of all like different, like all the different combinations, like from Czechs to other foreigners to like EU citizens to other foreigners living in the Czech Republic, and also like all third country nationals. We've seen like all the different combinations, like almost really, I think. And that must be sometimes pretty difficult, I think, to adjust like your culture and the culture of the other person. So yeah, guys, if you have any stories or just any findings, let us know. We'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Good. Do you want to jump to some questions? As always, in every podcast, and it's our second one, we ask our followers to send us some questions about the topic we're going to do the podcast about. And we did receive some very juicy questions.
Let's go for it.
I have one from our follower, which is, if I'm applying for the partnership visa, can you be out of the country for more than 6 months?
Well, we generally recommend not leaving the country for an extended period of time until you get approved. After that, there are still some rules you should stick to, but the thing is that if you submit the application, you're saying that you want to live with your partner, whom you love so much and you cannot live without, and then you go like for 6 months to travel somewhere, like work trip or whatever. That's not really good look. So I would probably recommend applying after you travel, or traveling after you get approved. Shorter periods of time are fine, but if it's like 6 months you want to leave for, it makes no sense to submit the application, because also from the process perspective, you will most likely miss the foreign police, you could miss the interview. Even if you get approved, you will not do the biometrics, you will not pick up the card, so it doesn't make sense in my opinion.
Right, next question. I love it so much. My Czech boyfriend won't let me move in with him, but he says he loves me. Will MOI believe that? Girl, that's a red flag. Girl, I don't think, do you believe that? It's not a question of ministry of so, but taking talking seriously, you do have to live together. If you're not married, you have to live together in order to apply for that.
And that actually applies to non-EU citizens as well, because we get this situation a lot. Let's say that, for example, one person comes here as a student, they live in dormitories, and they want to invite their spouse, and the dormitories will not let them stay there because they're not students. So they try to arrange the virtual proof of accommodation for the spouse and ask us questions about that. And also, if you're married, you need to live together. So you cannot really, you will be living at a dormitory.
Well, officially, the law doesn't say that you have to. If you're married, the law doesn't say that you do have to live together.
Yeah, but I've seen some
That's
denials
a loophole.
as well.
Yeah, but it's a loophole, actually.
Yeah, but if you have a different address for your spouse than where you live, that could definitely raise some questions.
Well, that's weird as fuck.
That's another thing. Yeah, and at least the minimum or the least that could happen is that they invite you for an interview to explain that, and you potentially risk also a denial. So I would not do that. Of course, it's difficult. If you are a student and you live in a dormitory for 6,000 crowns, and then you need to find a flat for you and your spouse for 20, and then you will not even be living there with your spouse until they get the visa approved. It's a complicated situation, but so is marriage.
You know something about that.
Yeah.
Fair. Now, do I need to show texts with heart emojis as part of love? So actually, I feel like a lot of people read experiences and what people submit as a proof of love. And a lot of these people, they want to I prepared our conversations and screenshots of our conversations. I personally never submit that. I feel like that's such a personal thing. I never do. I always say it doesn't hurt. It will not hurt. But would you want someone to go through your conversations?
I've seen some too personal conversations I didn't want to see.
Exactly. So I always say I always advise against it. If you have enough other evidence of your relationship, I never but some people insist. It's okay, go for it.
Two things. One thing is that most likely you're not speaking Czech in the conversation. So if you wanted to use it as a proof, the things you say in the conversations, you would need to get it translated into Czech. And if you have 7 years of texts, you probably don't want to get it translated into Czech because that will cost you a fortune. On the other hand, potentially if you print 7,000 pages of your conversations, even if it's not in Czech and you submit it as an additional proof, it will have some value because you would hardly fake 7 years of conversation. So even if the ministry cannot understand what you're saying, it's at least a proof that you've known each other for some period of time.
That is such a long answer.
Sorry. As I mentioned, I could talk about it for years.
Now everybody will think I'm a fucking bitch not to letting you talk, but I feel like so many things can be done so much faster. I appreciate you though.
Thanks. I appreciate you too.
how do I prove a long-distance relationship is real? Do they want a Spotify playlist or something? It's all right. In these cases, for example, what I do, you can do some screenshots of like being on a video call and stuff, or maybe you send presents to each other. You can also do that, or like flower deliveries to each other. But then, of course, one of the conditions is that after you come here to the Czech Republic, you do absolutely have to start living together.
Yeah, also depends on like long distance generally is not really good because that's not that serious of a relationship, let's say, from the perspective of the Ministry of the Interior. But it depends on other conditions as well. Like if you travel together, it's a long distance relationship, but you've visited 20 countries traveling together. It's definitely a stronger application than if you just like, you haven't seen each other in real life and you only talk on Facebook Messenger.
Do they actually stalk your Instagram to check if your relationship is real? Ain't nobody got time for that, girl. Like nobody's gonna do that. Nobody's gonna go an extra mile to like to know if that's real or not. So no.
I've actually seen some people who printed their like Facebook pages or something, like important posts when there's celebrated birthday or anniversary or whatever, and they have it on Facebook. Then like they did a print screen and submitted that as a proof.
Now we have what the author called a very hypothetical question. What happens if we break up after I get the visa?
Okay, asking for a friend.
Exactly. So theoretically, like not getting into details, if you break up, you will have a possibility to change your visa status. You can apply for the long-term residency, but you have to prove that you have ties in the Czech Republic. So you're either employed or self-employed. They will give you a possibility. It's maybe returning to my very first point, what we started with, because we started with abusive relationships. So
why not?
Sorry?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. So in case you do break up, but you are employed or self-employed and you have ties here, they will let you express those ties and will let you do that. So in case, just like my personal, like advice would be, if you feel like your relationship is not working out for you as you thought it's gonna be, and you feel like that could jeopardize your stay, find a job. Like find a job, start doing a business. Why are you laughing at me?
I've seen like the one who's not thinking about the breakup, and now he sees his partner is out of nowhere getting a job. So like, oh fuck.
No, I mean like, come on.
You're
Like,
gonna
the
leave
other
me
partner
now.
also, yeah. I mean like, okay. So like a girl always, like a woman always gives you, like it's always a man who is clueless. Like a man always is like, oh no, she just broke up with me all of a sudden. Like she's been telling you probably for years.
Yeah, she tried to find a job.
She tried to find, yeah. She found like, you made her find a job. Like
that's a fair point.
You made her like start a freelance business. Like now, like you made her like you made her a business babe right now. So like you had it coming. Like it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah. So like if you think it might happen, like start like it's life. Like so start thinking of your ways out. I don't know how to put it mildly. So you will need to prove that that you have ties here and you have a reason to stay here.
Yeah, and ideally consult with someone, not a Facebook group, maybe us or someone else, doesn't matter, but someone who works in that field, because the preparation, the change of your status is not like a simple thing that will happen overnight and you just need like one document for that. You need to be prepared for that. And
because things will go down very quickly, like prepare for that, especially if one of the partners is not like aware of something's happening, like things will go down very fast. So we need to be prepared.
Yep.
Okay, so on this positive note, we're gonna finish our podcast. And if this episode made you question your visa status or your relationship, good. We're here for that. But also if this episode made you want to move to Prague and when you want to reunite with your loved ones, we're also here for that. So hip hip for you.
Yep.
Whether you're in love or out of love or faking it really well.
Okay.
Don't forget to follow us. Yeah, so we always share articles, we always share some insights, and for sure we will be returning to this topic. I'm sure we'll invite some of you to share your story, because that's a very interesting perspective from many points of view of immigration, or like adjusting to the life in Czech Republic, or how you're handling it. And yeah, and Jan is like really, I don't know, I feel like he really wants to say something.
No, I don't.
Okay, he does not. Okay. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, please leave your comment, share your experience. If there's something that you liked or didn't like about this episode, please let us know. And as we advertised earlier, like this podcast means to be no bullshitting. We don't want to be this like fluffy, everything is great and we, fart butterflies type of podcast. Like, we just share our experience because we have nothing to lose. Literally, we lost all our desire for love and for life and for everything. So
Yeah,
we're just like saying
burned out.
we are burned out as fuck. So just we're just sharing things how they are. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we are negative. Like you heard a lot of like nice things during the podcast as well, but we're really sharing the experience.
And guys, if any of you listened to the end of this podcast and heard about our burned out, please send us an email or comment with some encouraging words, so we know that you heard the whole story.
Yeah, that would be very encouraging. Like, we need some dopamine, please. So just provide us with some dopamine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for today. And you can look forward to our podcast that we're going to be doing in the future.
See you next time, guys.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.